scanner software. And I believe that the highest that this can get set to right now is 300 DPI, which is actually just fine for his imagery for the most part. If we needed to change that, then we could look into that later. And then once the stuff is on the scanner bed, you can just hit scan. Just trying to keep it as simple as possible. He'll actually crop in Photoshop, and he knows how to do that already, so we don't really have to crop at the scanning stage. But it runs pretty fast. And then you say done, and then you want to say save, and in this case, I want to say Brianna Monkey, since this is actually one of Brianna's drawings. And then I'm going to hit save, and then close. And now the next thing is Jacob will open Photoshop, and he'll open the thing that he just scanned. File. Open. If all the pictures get saved by default to the pictures folder, that'll probably keep the desktop nice and clean, and everything will be right where you would expect it to be. And so Brianna Monkey in this case. And now here in the Photoshop stage, if you hit Command and the plus button, that'll make this bigger. That's the Command key that has the weird little kind of Gaelic looking symbol, along with the key that has the sign for plus. And that makes it easier to work with, and that's something to cue him on so that he can see it better. And he will probably want to crop, and if not, you can maybe cue him to crop. So I use the crop tool, and the crop tool is right over here. I'll click this, so let's say don't crop. So just one more time here. Click in here on the crop tool, and selecting, and then everything that you're cropping is going to be kind of grayed out. And then you just hit the return key, and that'll crop it. Now I'm going to hit Command and the plus key again to make this bigger so I can see it. Now image, up here at the top, you go up to the image drop-down menu, adjustments, curves, and I've created a preset called Jacob. And basically what the preset does is it works kind of like a fancy version of a contrast. It makes the whites white, and it makes the blacks darker and maybe incrementally thicker. It's a little more focused than a regular contrast slider, and I've just set it up to do exactly what we need to get done. So hit OK after selecting the Jacob preset there, which you can see is at the bottom of the list, and then OK, and then File, and then Save. Now you can close that one and quit Photoshop. And now the last stage here is going to be in Illustrator. So Photoshop is quitting, and then open Illustrator, which is the third piece of software in the line down here. And in Illustrator, I've actually created a script, which is going to be a little bit more complicated to find, but the script will actually, it's an action set, which is a type of a script that runs in Adobe products. You can create them in other programs too. Those are just the only two I've used. And we're going to say no, we do not want to help. And by default, I think it will open the last thing that he worked on, which is this owl. Look at that. That's cool. Alrighty, so we'll hit close out of that. File. Open. And bring on a monkey. And then select, you can either just click on the item and it'll select it by default, or you can do select all, which is Command A. And now this is where maybe the tricky part is, if this window is not open, then you'll need to go to Window, Actions, and select the Actions window. And in the Actions window, maybe what I will do is delete the default action so that there's only one action. Yep. In the Actions window, and if we leave this folder closed, it'll also keep it more simplified. All that Jacob has to do is click on the name Jacob, and after this is selected and highlighted, hit the play button, which is the triangle down here. And once I hit that, do not show again. This will convert this into a vector-based image, which is different from regular JPEG or any kind of a picture image in that it's mathematical rather than being a grid of pixels. There are no pixels in a vector-based image or an Illustrator image. And so what that does is that means that once it's done converting here, I'll zoom in on it, every little kink and wrinkle of these lines are represented by a mathematical formula, which means you can blow this up to like the size of a billboard without losing any resolution, because it's each little bend and curve of these lines is described by a mathematical formula rather than being a grid of pixels where, you know, if you go over 10 and down 20, it's black. Here it's each one of these little, and if I click on this white pointer and show you, you can see that's an anchor point. There's little lines that control the curves, that sort of thing. So anyways, I'm going to zoom back out again. Once this is done completing the conversion, then we can close the actions again. We have to go over here and look for the paint bucket, and sometimes I cannot remember where the paint bucket is. The paint bucket is behind one of these other tools. Nope. Paint bucket is, nope. There it is. So it's behind the shape builder tool. It's the second one down there. So activate the paint bucket. And then lastly, we need to have him have colors to work with. So we're going to open a swatch library. And I have just been using the Macintosh system swatch library using the large thumbnail view. So Macintosh system. And there are colors. So he can pick from this swatch library, and by clicking here, when he goes to fill in a color, it'll make that color like yay. So I'm going to hit Command and Z to undo that. If he accidentally, like say for instance, he colors in the line, for instance, if he picks a color and colors in the actual outline, then he didn't mean to do that. All you have to do is hit Command Z to undo that, and it'll go back to the way it was. So that's where it's good to maybe be sitting with him while he's doing some of the coloring, lest, you know, he makes some mistakes by clicking in the wrong space. You know, and working with him on how to use that Command Z is a good thought too. So once that is done, so maybe I will color in a few things here. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Command Z. Kind of a weird cream color. There we go. So once he's colored in a few things, then we can save it as a PDF. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and I'm going to select for a file format PDF because that's pretty universal. And we can open this file later in other pieces of software besides Illustrator if we save it as a PDF. So I'll hit Save. And I'll just save it just everything kind of as default is fine. And in a second this will be did I save it? Oops. We'll just hit save here. I shouldn't have done save as, I should just do save. Save PDF. There we go. Brown Monkey PDF. Save. Save. And now it's actually the file that we're working with is actually, see up here, it should say when you're done, Brianna, or whatever the file's name is, PDF. And then the last thing I wanted to just say is, well, actually there's two more things. One is, look like back here. One is, this is exactly what I wanted to show you. I accidentally clicked here in this background, and because these lines were not closed, it filled in the background and it filled in everything that the background was touching. I'm going to hit Command Z here. So in order for this to work, these shapes have to be closed. If these shapes aren't all the way closed, you can see this one looks like it's open here, but it's obviously closed enough that if I fill that in, the color won't bleed out into the background. Here, that shape's not closed, and this shape's not closed, and none of these shapes are closed except for this one is closed. As you can see, it's closed. Jacob is going to have to make sure that his shapes are closed either when he's doing the drawing, or in Photoshop when we're getting ready for the conversion, we can use the paintbrush tool to close up some of those shapes. And if they're not closed enough, then they won't fill in properly. So that is what I have to say about that. I'm just going to undo here a couple of steps. I think I'll just fill this like this. Actually, and then I'm going to hit save one more time. And to hit save, you could also just do Command S. I'm going to say that one is blank. And then the last thing I want to say is that once these files are saved on here, we can get to them from our local network by looking down here. If you're on your computer or you're on the computer out in the back workroom, if you look down the side here where it says shared, because we're on Jacob's computer, we don't see Jacob's computer, but Jacob's computer would come up on the list of shared computers down here. We would see it, you know, probably between HP2 and WRC1. It would say Jacob or Jacob's Mac Mini. And if you open up a browser window on one of the computers and go to that and then navigate to his pictures folder, we can actually, you can drag the files out of his folder onto the computer that you're working on if you want to email something to somebody or print it out for a silkscreen or whatever. And the other thing is the login. In order to get onto Jacob's computer remotely, I've set up access to it, and the username is artworking, and the password is WORC2102, which is the same password that we use to get on the wireless network. So if you want to be able to get into Jacob's computer to move files around or to copy files, the password is artwork, or the username is artworking, and the password is WRC2102. All right, I hope that's helpful. Ask me if you have any other questions, or you can also watch this video with Jacob if he's stuck or wants a refresher. Alrighty.